Hello, professionals. My name is Rico Aladdin, and I am the founder of Professional Lunch. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Mayor Del Rae Williams. She's here for another episode of the Professional Lunch. So I'm gonna give her a chance to introduce herself and what she does. I know, she's probably she's not a mayor anymore, but she's still in the professional world, and I know she has a lot to say. So, Mayor Del Rae, it's such a pleasure to have you here today for a professional lunch. How are you?
I am good. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, it's such a pleasure to have you here. So, tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Del Rae Williams. Career-wise, I've been in public accounting for decades.
Wow.
And I retired early,
Okay.
and so I have Crohn's disease. Is why I did that, because it just made sense for us. And then so I had 5 years where I basically just did volunteering. I became that pro bono CPA for a variety of organizations in the community, and I enjoyed that.
Wow.
I tend to be a sort of a social justice warrior.
Wow.
And so there's tons of things you could do there.
Okay.
And then sort of a last minute thing, I tried to find some good candidates for mayor when the current mayor wasn't going to run for re-election. And I went through 3 people who, for a variety of reasons, didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, is this going to be one of those regret things?
Oh.
And I've been asked to run for office since I was 19, really,
Wow.
truly. So it's not like I hadn't really thought about it, but it was never on my bucket list.
Okay.
But I didn't like the idea of later going, gosh, I should have done that. And so I did. And I've done campaigns, but I did everything not what I recommend for people when I'm helping them with their campaign.
Wow.
You don't do it that last minute-y.
Mhm.
You have your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
I just had to sort of fill in, because it was like mid-August,
Okay.
right? And you usually start in January.
Wow.
And so I just went running with it,
Wow.
truth be told. But anyway, it worked out well.
Yeah.
The 2 guys that have been in candidates and in an office for many years, I won. So so it was just a different time frame to be able to sort of do it in the way I thought it should be done.
Wow. Well, you are in both the professional world, the political world. Now, I'm curious to know. Let's talk first about the political world. Did you always want to be in politics?
I'm not sure that I saw myself running,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought to make change, you needed to have some degree of activeness, right?
Okay.
My parents were active in a different party than I currently am.
Okay.
And I shifted just based on where I stood. And frankly, I don't know. My dad, who's the most active, may have shifted too, really, truly.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, local government was very interesting. And so I watched, because that's the closest one to actual people,
Mm-hmm.
Connected-wise. And so I chaired a political campaign in college.
Oh.
Not a campaign, but a committee.
Okay.
And I also did my first campaign in college.
Mm.
They asked me first to run at 19,
Wow.
and I said no. And then the guy who did run, who turned 21 on election night, won also.
Oh my goodness. So what did they ask you to run for?
It was a House position.
Okay. Okay.
In Minot, North Dakota.
Oh wow.
And so it was just kind of a good thing to kind of be able to kind of get involved. At that point, we did 7 a.m. breakfast meetings, and if you're in college, that's not a thing that you
Yep.
care for, but but I did, and I think my assignments were to work on the marketing part. I had taken some marketing classes,
Okay.
so we did bright orange at the time because that was a color that meant frugality, and of course we're young, so people need to feel like we're some degree of reasonable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to kind of be able to put things I'm learning in college into practice, right? And then issues. And so
Okay.
I met with a lot of people just to talk about viewpoints on things. So it was a good way to kind of get involved.
Yes. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I'm just as curious in the political world as a business world. So you've been an accountant for a number of years, you said decades.
Yep.
So did you decide to become an accountant at a young age, or were you? How did that happen?
I was going to be a psychiatrist.
Oh, okay. Well, how did that change? How did you change that?
Well, so my spouse in Minot, we have a hometown college, right?
Okay.
Minot State University.
Yeah.
And my mom thought I should go to my first year at Minot.
Oh, okay.
And they did not. They were not prepared for me, what would be med school or any of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so I took classes and kind of lost my interest in that.
Okay.
And my parents were business owners, and so business aspect felt comfortable.
Yes.
And I wanted to be a professional of a sort, and so a CPA made sense.
Yeah, okay.
That's why I shifted.
Okay.
But still very interested in psychology.
Do you ever missed it? Because that's something you really wanted to do, it seems like.
Well, so before I decided to retire early, I thought about going back to school. And so I got most of my psych degree. And then after a while, we decided that didn't make sense. And so I retired early instead. But yeah, I'm still very interested. And if I could do do-overs, I think I would do marketing instead of accounting and management, because that's more fascinating to me, and frankly it's closer to the psychology of how people think. Right?
Yeah.
And so marketing is just really intriguing to me.
Okay, so why is that? What do you find intriguing about marketing?
Well, it's about people, right? How do people think? How do you influence people? How do you get them to think in different kind of ways about things? It's just very interesting, and I think people are interesting.
Okay.
And so it's a way of having sort of a business piece to it, but still be people-oriented.
Okay. Wow, the both were, I don't know which one to focus on because they are both interesting. So while you were a mayor, tell me, what are some of the issues that were on your top to-do list? So,
and then one of the things I learned is, frankly, everything takes a lot longer than you think.
Yeah.
Right? And so what I did when I first decided to run, I hadn't thought that out, except that I didn't want that kind of, I wanted something to be open. I wanted a little more civil engagement, because at that time people were screaming at each other. And I found that embarrassing, and I kind of wanted to be more community-oriented. Okay. So what I basically did is I signed up, got myself a Facebook page, a Gmail account, made business cards that were just basic, and I started door knocking, right away. And so to me, it's about listening. What do you want in somebody who's a public servant? Yeah. And sometimes they go into it because it's about themselves. Yeah. And it wasn't for me. For me, it was about community. And so I found some key things. People didn't feel like it mattered what they thought. It was very intriguing. And so I had some great conversations about that, hence why Coffee with the Mayor started. Being out and being very involved, I really upped the game for social media. State lawyers, cities thing did an article on me for their newspaper, just about what things I did that connected with the community. Okay. The downtown, I kind of started having conversations about that because I felt like people wanted to have that as a thing. Okay. And that's where I've learned where it takes a lot longer than you think. I think we're getting there, and we will be there. It's just not an instantaneous kind of thing. And then the other piece of it that I did was more permission giving, right? We would talk about Moorhead, and people we had sort of, it's more like changing how people think of things. And so people will say that I'm definitely a cheerleader for Moorhead, and I am.
Yes.
But what we were doing at the time is we would look at what other places have and what we don't have. And I'd say, well, but we all would be here. We all could move across the river or some other community in Minnesota near and still have the same jobs. That's really not a thing. But we choose to be in Moorhead, and here's your reasons, right? We all can sort of talk about what our reasons for, and we would never change that.
Wow.
Like, we moved here. I was born and raised in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Moved here and bought a house in Fargo, but I would never move back.
Wow.
Right? Because I know too much about what Moorhead is.
Wow.
And so we needed to vocalize that, and that's where the Moorhead Proud thing kind of got going. And the parts of it was, connecting with the business community. When I first went to, my next day, after elections, I went to MBA, Moorhead Business Association, had meetings, and still do at 7 in the morning. And that was one of my, after a little media thing that's at 6, but that they had at 7. And then, they wanted me to talk, and I said, I'll tell you I didn't come here because you did not pay attention to any of the candidates, and I had a very rigorous things I needed to accomplish. And you had Mark and Mike who came here, and you were focusing on which ones of the two you're going to vote for. So it was not a useful point of my time. Yeah. But what I said to him, I said, I was your candidate. I was the only candidate that was a business owner and grew up with business owners. I had my own accounting firm for a number of years. I advised business owners. That was my job. Yeah. I didn't do some little minor consulting thing on a Schedule C. Yeah. I had employees, I had a space, everything that a business really has. And so I understand. A
legitimate business.
I understand that versus consulting is a business, but it's not your livelihood, which with the other two were doing. And I said, no, I get it. I was your candidate. And I said, I'll promise that I will be here at least once a month. You will have me open doors, and I will be a part of who you are. Yeah. And so... and I could tell by their faces, they were excited about that, even though hardly anyone probably voted for me. So it's about that. Yes. And then, I spent more time doing lobbying. I'm not sure I visualized that, but I really enjoyed that. Okay. And because it's very distinctive. We have a need, and we need money for it. Yes. And so the underpass, those kinds of things, although I'm not part of their building it and stuff like that, I was a key component about getting the funding for it. Yes. Yeah. And so Green Step City was a big thing because I knew the community was very involved in sustainability. It's very important to them. And so that was a key component that I was very proud of. And then communications and how people kind of feel how they connect with the city. Yeah. So those are the things I feel really good about. And then there's here and there things, but
absolutely.
It's good. It was a great experience.
Wow, very good, very good. So this is the political world, but like I said, it's kind of hard to separate the political world from the business world, isn't it? Yeah, because
we're all piece and part of a whole community, right?
Yes. And that being said, so when I said some of the things that you're interested in your business, so how involved were you as a politician and also as a businesswoman? So did you do that first or second, the business?
Well, it depended, when I was just doing campaigns for people, it was like a hobby.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I had friends that I agreed with and wanted to help, and so I often was the go-to treasurer for a lot of campaigns. Wow. Yeah, so I did a ton of those. And so you can't be a treasurer and not be really involved in it. Yes, right? Absolutely. And as a CPA, I knew how to make sure that the books were done. After I quit doing that, I often was the person that trained people's treasurers. Oh, cool. Good. I mean, including, JJ's. Yes. I met with his treasurer. Wow.
Very nice. Yes. Oh my goodness. This conversation is, I'm learning so much about the mayor and the work that she has done while she was a mayor. And now, this is a professional lunch. So we're going to order our food and then we'll be right back to talk about some of the things that she loves uh, doing while she was a mayor and also in the business world. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back again. I am here with Mayor Del Rae, and we are having such a great conversation. My name is Rico Aladdin, and I am the founder of Professional Lunch. My guest today has been in both the political world and the business world. We were talking about the political world, and now we're gonna talk about what she loves about what she does, what she did when she was a mayor, and also what she loved about what she did when she's in business. So, now tell me, what do you love about me being a mayor? You were a mayor for 5 years, 5+
5 years. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what do you love? It can be an accomplishment. It can be how you relate with the people. Anything you can share with me that you really love about when you were a mayor.
So a lot of the things I loved the most were invisible.
Okay.
Right? I got to connect with a number of people
Mm-hmm.
and connect them wherever their needs are and their goals are in some kind of way.
Yes.
And so people tend to trust me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a good listener,
That's
which
good.
I think is a good attribute for anybody you vote for,
Okay.
and more service oriented.
Good.
I'm
good.
about doing the job, not how it helps me.
Mm-hmm.
And so those aspects where I got to connect with people were my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have what we called, my staff person used to call a highly caffeinated day.
Mm-hmm.
And we would be at what is now third drop, and she would schedule me for an 8 o'clock, a 9 o'clock, a 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock.
Wow.
And maybe lunch. And then basically what it did is it allowed me to have good quality time with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but limited my time. So we were aware of how I utilized my time.
Yes.
And so I could kind of connect and say, I have somebody coming at 9,
Mm-hmm.
because we could do some chit-chatty each time, but also let's do a little what we needed to talk about when
Yes.
I'm there. And the interesting thing for me is after I was done,
Mm-hmm.
I still had that. And in
Mhm.
fact, except I'm doing my own scheduling. And so I would do a little bit of that
Mhm.
too, because what was interesting is people said, well, I wanted to connect with you, but you were so busy I didn't want to bother you. And now that
Oh.
you're not mayor
Uh-huh.
and retired,
Yeah.
because I retired at 50, I thought I'd have an opportunity to see what you thought about. And then it would just be all sorts of ideas. It could
Yeah.
be starting a business. It
Mhm.
could be an idea in the community. How do I connect on a piece of information I'm having a problem with?
Mhm.
It was just a real variety. And the beauty of being mayor is I learned a lot. I mean, I was very connected. I knew a number of stuff anyway. And
Yeah.
if you've ever read Malcolm Gladwell's I'm forgetting the book, but anyway, it basically talks about connectors, and
Okay.
I've always been a connector.
That's good.
And so to help people get to their next step,
Mhm.
right? And if there's a way that I can connect them with people that can help them,
Mhm.
I do that. And so even during the pandemic,
Mhm.
I'd be doing that with Zoom. I almost always have a number of just different ones. Like yesterday was meeting with Pastor Sue and the development guy from Churches United. 'Cause
Okay.
we're trying to figure out what to do because they're full
Mhm.
and it's winter,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so how do we handle that? And she's finding because she's Pastor Sue and people expect it, there isn't an urgency, and as I did while I was mayor, I called up Governor Dayton and asked to have Moorhead declared a disaster zone because we were going into a January that had -20 below zero.
Yes.
right? And I wanted to use the Armory
Mm-hmm.
and use National Guard people to help us with that.
Wow.
And so, not that we need to contact Governor Walz,
Mm-hmm.
but we could,
Yes,
right? If we
yes.
can figure out the right kind of combination of what we need.
Wow.
And so, but it's going to need the county,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to need the city, community to kind of be pieces of it, because Churches United cannot do it by themselves.
Yeah.
And so that was our conversation yesterday. So it's those kinds of things
Mm-hmm.
that I think I can be helpful because of knowledge and who I know,
Yes.
all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I have some degree of time.
Yes, that's good. That's good. I have to ask you, what would you consider to be your number one accomplishment while being mayor?
That's hard, and so I got asked that a lot, and so I went down to three things, right, in my mind, because they were things that were going to impact Moorhead long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
The funding for the underpasses.
Yes.
We really needed that. They're complicated by all means, but we have the funding,
Yes,
right?
that's good.
The Green Step City,
Mhm.
which is going to make us sustainable and get us through the problem. And so that will,
Mhm.
and people won't, they'll see pieces of it,
Mhm.
but that was one that impacted Moorhead.
Mhm.
Arts in Moorhead, that's the other piece. Nobody talked about it. Now it's part of our mission statement.
Wow.
We don't do things, including the underpass, without thinking what kind of art can we confuse into there.
Yeah.
And that's because the community talked to me about it, right? It wasn't so much that I'm not an artist, but I see the value of it. And
Yeah.
that'll also help what will shift our downtown. So it had pieces of what I was trying to accomplish anyway.
Yes. Yes.
So those are the three that I usually talk about. But frankly, there's so many different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, because your agenda is always busy. And the other piece I think about is Dan, who's our city manager, and I talk about this a lot because I talk about community engagement. And so it makes sense. It makes sense to have that as a part that is be a permission giving. We become a permission giving city, which we weren't before.
That's good.
But people don't always get that part.
Okay, that's
because it's so nebulous, right?
That's good. That's good. That's good. Wow. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I stay longer on the political side of things. But what can you tell me? In business, you are in business. You help. I assume you help a lot of people, a lot of different other business. So, can you tell me three things, or maybe a couple of things that you think that while you are in business that you really like to do? You really like, either it's helping people. Let's say you help a company with their things, their books and stuff like that. So tell me.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And accountants were all different breeds, right? I used to say that they would talk about accountants, and I said, I'm the accountant that looks at your shoes, not my shoes,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
I can be a little bit more comfortable to people. I'm not what they would call being counters. You
Yes.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like to look at what their goals are and how they can accomplish them. So I would help people figure out how to interpret their own stuff, how to use the information they got, and that kind of thing. So to me, it's still very similar in that it's very, it's still service oriented versus, whereas I would never want to be the CFO for an organization. Not that that isn't useful, because it's good to, say you're a nonprofit or something like that, helping the businesses understand their information. But in public accounting, I get a bigger, broader variety than that, than just one. And I don't focus on how journal entries are.
Yeah.
I mean, I never did that. I hired people to do that because I find that boring.
Yeah, you are more involved in the bigger picture.
Right. I like to analyze things.
Yeah.
I'm very analytical about things and strategic. And so I used to tell this to my son because he's an engineer.
Okay.
And he used to worry about, did I pick the right one?
Wow.
And I'd say, well, it's just like accounting. I could say I'm an accountant, But do I do books? No. The only books I really care to do is I volunteer for something. I might do some nonprofit that's minor. I did my books for my mom's businesses. But I didn't like them. I would usually have to have some TV on at the same time because I get bored easily with that. But some people like all that to kind of like come together and they like that piece. And if you're that person, maybe a CFO is the person. But if you're more strategic, you may want to think more public accounting.
Wow, very good, very good. Man, this is conversation. I love the conversation that we're having today. So we're going to take another pause here as I see the waitress coming. And then we're going to enjoy our food. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the next part of the conversation, which I think is the most important. It's the challenges. What are the challenges? Some of the challenges that you can face as a politician. There can be many. As a business owner, there can be many. And also as a professional, an accountant. So we'll be right back. All right, we are back here, and I am with Mayor Del Rae. Now we're going to talk about the best part of the conversation, the challenges. So, Mayor Del Rae, you have been a politician, you have been in the business world. I want you to tell me, first, if someone wants to enter the political world right now, what do you think, according to you, are some of the top challenges they will face?
I think there's a variety of things. People right now are very distrustful. So you have to be impeccable with your word. I can't say that enough to people because people will think, and I've had people say this to me, well, I will say this, but this is what I'm really thinking. And so like, why not just be what you're thinking? Because it shows. People know. And so I think you need to be impeccable with your word, a high degree of integrity, and always civil, right? Because if somebody is not civil to you, the best reaction is not to do what they're doing back at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then at some point, they'll kind of have this like, okay, I'm being asked, right, moment, and they will shift. And so I have the beauty that I can be pretty calm about stuff. Kid on the spectrum. I really just find that as people get upset, I get calmer.
That's a good quality to have.
It is. And I developed it over years because my spouse is also on the spectrum. You know, so when he gets excited, I just get calmer. It's sort of like I'm counteracting him, and then they become calmer.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
But if I had reacted it in the way I'm thinking, and you know, they're excited, and then I become excited, we're all just excited, then nobody's thinking at all. And so you kind of need to get you down to a place where you are having good civil discussion, because nobody feels good about the other stuff afterwards. Nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
And also the other piece I think about is when you know that there's going to be an issue, don't just pretend it's not going to happen. Here's your opportunity to think about how to handle it. I would sometimes think out how I could see it happening, then what would I say, you know, so that I'm not caught off guard. It's not any different than when we had chatted earlier. I talked about going places, not knowing that they're going to ask me to speak, but always being at the ready for it.
Yes.
And so I have my 3 things that I could talk, because the answer when, Mayor, would you like to say something? The correct answer is always yes.
Yes.
Right? Or they wouldn't have asked you.
Exactly.
And but then I'm prepared. I'm not caught off guard and looking ridiculous. And
nobody's kind of putting you on the spot. You're always ready.
I'm always ready.
Yes.
Right. You know, and as an accountant, I'm not a speaker. I mean, that's not.
That's not your thing.
That's not my thing.
But
you know, you develop what you need to develop for the circumstance, right?
Yes.
And so, I'm fine now with speaking to groups. I used to, like everyone else, fear it. You know, and no problem. Could you speak at this? Yeah. And then for me, it's just making sure I know what content I'm going to talk about.
That's good.
You know.
Yeah. So, okay.
So preparing.
Okay, yes, exactly. So, let me ask you this: you are an accountant. You are. I mean, how did you go about developing your public speaking skills? Because one could argue that when you're an accountant, maybe you don't get to have that.
I spoke on 1099s.
Okay. Yes. So yeah.
Yeah, so I did very little that was really dry, boring stuff.
Okay.
But even then, I would I learned some tips.
Uh-huh.
So I think about like a mayor welcome.
Yeah.
So you go to a conference and there's wherever you are, in the very beginning, a mayor says, "Welcome to my city," right?
Yeah.
Nobody pays attention to that. I wish I had, because then I think, oh. And so what I learned from that is I need to be a little funny or upbeat in some way.
Yeah.
I need to be short, so if they tell me 5 minutes, I'll do it from 3.
Yeah.
And have something in mind that I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So, because the only my goal then is that they learn something about my city that they can remember. And I don't tell them many things, just 1 or 2 or 3 maybe things that are interesting. Kind of like Moorhead has had more best tasting water awards than any city in Minnesota.
Wow.
For instance.
Yeah.
You know, so that might be one. It might stick with you, and you know something more about Moorhead.
Exactly.
Versus, I don't remember anything about any of them anywhere before. And so you kind of think about what your goal is for that kind of thing. So the same with speaking in any other context. And be comfortable not, that was the other thing I learned when I was campaigning. So I wanted to prep, right? Because I have to say stuff and I'd write it down, and the other 2 guys did too. And then I realized when we were having, because we'd always be together, whatever, and then I would realize that there were just certain things I just knew, so I didn't make notes of them, but I might have the first and ending part. I think people didn't pay attention to that part, but when I would talk off the cuff, and even though it wasn't perfect words, I can tell, because when you're up there, you know when people are listening or not listening.
Yeah.
You know, their facial expressions, their attention to you, are they smiling or not smiling?
Yeah.
And so I realized that I had the audience that they did not have, because I was talking to people where they were, and I would just focus at one person, in some kind of way, and as if we were having a conversation.
Great.
Right? And
Very
so
nice.
It shifted for me. It wasn't scary anymore.
So that was some kind of that was a technique that you used in order for you to keep
and that
keep
was
them motivated.
just from learning and paying attention, right?
Yeah.
So they would do their thing, and I would watch the audience when they do it, and people are looking down, looking up, or whatever. They did not have them, but it's because they were too busy trying to be perfect with their words.
Yeah. Wow, that's very good. That's really good. So now that that's the business world, that's the political world. I'm curious about the business world. So, how hard was it for you to start your business?
So I think I told you I was 27 when I opened my accounting firm, and I had an in because I had one particular good sized client who wanted to utilize me, and so. And then it was word of mouth, right? Because an accountant who focuses on service for people, I think, is something people like.
Okay.
Right?
That's good.
And so there's a couple things. Always ask. People assume you're fine, but if you would like to grow and get more clients, you say, hey, and if you have a chance, recommend me. Do the ask.
Yes.
Salespeople will tell you that all the time. Development people will tell you all the time, because what they make the mistake of is they just have the conversation and assume people are in tune with you. But sometimes you have to just do, I would love to grow this, and if you have people that are looking for one, please recommend me and give them a business card.
You ask them,
You ask, because you develop a relationship with them, and you've made them part of your being successul.
Wow.
Right?
Very good.
And so I would grow pretty handily, and I would, what got to be problematic, because you try to size your office, and then I go, well, I need to hire 2 more people or 3 more people, and I don't have space for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's those problems, but still the bigger thing is to make sure that you grow and have people there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so you do your job really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like restaurants. Their biggest mistake is when they just do something but they're not quite there. They
Wow.
need to be premium from the beginning because it's word of mouth. And
Yes.
word of mouth is a key component to everything. That's
Yes.
why it's connections and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
People says something that somebody else values
Yeah.
them.
One person get a good service, they tell another one tell another one. And then,
Exactly.
And then the word spread.
And it goes the other way too.
Yeah.
If it's a bad experience, and
It's-
they'll talk about how many times people will say, even more so,
Yeah.
if it's a bad
If it's
experience.
bad, yes.
So it's always important that you leave people in some kind of satisfied way. So don't just go to them. You need to make sure that you resolved it in a way that's at least amenable to them.
Yeah, acceptable. Oh my goodness. So I got to ask you right now, if someone, a young professional, let's say 22-year-old graduating from college right now, listening to you, what would you tell them about either trying to do something in the community, in the political world, or trying to start their business? What would be your advice to them?
Volunteer.
Volunteer.
Connect yourself.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's connections. So there are a lot of nonprofits that want people. There's a lot of service organizations. Connect yourself with those people because, and then ask for help, right? Because people will want to help people they like, but you need to sort of connect yourself so people know who you are. It doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And so I always was on something, partly because I thought it was important for me to always give back in some kind of way.
Okay.
But in retrospect, I recognize that I met these people there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's always ways that you can kind of do it. And so if you're not comfortable, like you're the only person, like I used to drag my spouse to business after hours because I thought, I don't really know who I know here. I don't want to be that person standing by myself looking idiotic or anything like that. But just talk a friend into coming with you or something like that. And then after a while, you meet more and one
More
and whatever.
people. Yep.
And then after a while, business after hours is a good one because I didn't need my spouse to come with me because I would just see people when I'm there. And then he loved it so much, he'd always go, wow, I kind of want to go.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yes.
But it's just, wherever you can start where you're at.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, Mayor Del Rae, I have to tell you, it's been such a pleasure to have you today for an episode of Professional Lunch. I hope we can meet again, whether for a professional lunch or whether just to have lunch to chat, because
I would love that.
You have such great ideas. And I want to thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you contacted me.
No problem. You are much welcome. Now, this is the part that I tell you. It's up to you to make today a great day. So have a great day.